beyond the exciting videos and dramatic underwater footage. He wanted to understand the reality behind the profession. What was a normal workday like? How many hours did divers spend underwater? What risks did they face? What separated successful divers from those who quit? The answers weren't always easy to hear. Commercial diving demanded discipline. It demanded patience. It demanded commitment. Many students entered training programs without fully understanding the challenges ahead. Some struggled with the physical requirements. Others discovered that working underwater was far more demanding than they had imagined. But instead of discouraging Malik, those stories pushed him even harder. He respected the profession even more because of its difficulty. The challenge itself became part of the attraction. Every successful diver he studied seemed to share something in common: determination, the willingness to learn, and the ability to stay calm under pressure. Malik wrote these observations in his notebook, not because they would appear on a certification exam, but because he believed mindset was just as important as technical knowledge. As the days passed, his notebook became filled with pages of information: requirements, training paths, career opportunities, potential salaries, industry expectations, personal goals. The blank pages that once represented uncertainty were now filled with direction. For the first time in years, Malik felt like he was moving toward something meaningful. He could finally see a future that excited him, a future that required effort but offered opportunity, a future that depended on the choices he made today. The more he studied, the more he understood that success would not happen overnight. There would be no shortcuts, no instant rewards, no guarantees. Everything would have to be earned. And strangely, that made him even more motivated. Because if others had done it, maybe he could too. Every expert had started somewhere. Every professional had once been a beginner. Every successful career had begun with someone making the decision to try. Malik wasn't a diver yet. He hadn't entered a training school. He hadn't earned a certification. He hadn't stepped into the water professionally. But something had already changed. His mindset, his confidence, his sense of direction. For months, he had been searching for answers. Now he was finding them, and each answer led to another step forward. The journey was still in its early stages. The biggest challenges were still ahead. The hardest tests had not yet arrived. But the foundation was being built. And foundations matter, because every great achievement begins long before anyone notices the results. It begins with preparation, with study, with patience, with countless hours spent learning while nobody is watching. That was where Malik was now, preparing, learning, building, getting ready for the moment when opportunity would finally meet preparation. And when that moment arrived, he intended to be ready. To be continued. While researching commercial diving, Malik discovered something that completely changed the way he looked at the profession. Most people think commercial divers spend their days swimming underwater. But the reality is far more intense. In fact, many commercial divers work in conditions that most people would never be willing to face. Imagine entering water so dark that you can't even see your own hand in front of your face. No sunlight, no clear visibility, nothing but darkness surrounding you. Now imagine performing a complicated task in those conditions while carrying heavy equipment and following strict safety procedures. That's the reality for many commercial divers around the world. The deeper Malik researched, the more surprising the profession became. He discovered that commercial divers are often responsible for inspecting bridges, repairing ships, maintaining underwater pipelines, and supporting massive offshore construction projects. Some of these structures are worth millions of dollars, and the people trusted to work on them must be highly trained professionals. But the environment itself isn't the only challenge. Water creates pressure, and pressure changes everything. As divers descend deeper below the surface, their bodies are exposed to conditions that most people never experience. That's why training is so important. Every diver must learn how to manage equipment, follow safety procedures, communicate with surface crews, and respond to emergencies. One small mistake underwater can become a major problem within seconds. And that's exactly why companies invest heavily in training and safety. The more Malik learned, the more he understood that commercial diving wasn't a career for people looking for an easy paycheck. It was a career for people willing to develop discipline, focus, and technical skills. Then he discovered the most fascinating parts of the industry: underwater welding, a skill so specialized that many people don't even believe it exists. Imagine welding metal structures beneath the surface while dealing with pressure, limited visibility, and demanding working conditions. It sounded almost impossible, yet professional divers perform these tasks every day. The profession was beginning to feel less like a job and more like a hidden world that very few people ever get to see. A world filled with challenges. A world filled with risk. A world filled with opportunity. But there was something else that caught Malik's attention. Not everyone who enters the industry succeeds. Many people are attracted by stories of high salaries. But the professionals who build long careers understand that success isn't created by money. It's created by preparation, by experience, by learning skills that take years to master. Every interview Malik watched seemed to repeat the same message. Respect the profession. Respect the training. Respect the risks. Because underwater environments don't forgive carelessness. That lesson stayed with him. And as he continued researching, he began to realize that commercial diving was doing something unexpected. It wasn't only teaching him about a career. It was teaching him about commitment, patience, responsibility, and the mindset required to achieve difficult goals. The more he learned, the more determined he became. Because for the first time in years, he could see a path leading somewhere meaningful. A path that would demand effort. A path that would test his limits. A path that very few people were willing to take. And maybe that was exactly what made it worth pursuing. What Malik didn't know yet was that the next step would be even harder than all the research he had done so far. Because soon, he would have to stop learning from a screen and start facing the real world. And that's where everything would begin to change. The deeper Malik researched commercial diving, the more he realized he was looking at an industry most people know almost nothing about. At first, he thought it was simply a profession that involved working underwater. But the truth was far more interesting. As he scrolled through articles and videos, he discovered that humans have been diving for thousands of years. Long before modern technology existed, divers were already entering the water to recover treasures, repair ships, collect valuable resources, and perform tasks that seemed impossible for their time. For centuries, people searched for ways to stay underwater longer. Inventors created primitive diving systems. Engineers developed underwater helmets. And over time, those inventions evolved into the equipment used by commercial divers today. The more Malik learned about the history of diving, the more fascinated he became. This wasn't just another job. It was the result of hundreds of years of innovation, engineering, and human determination. Then he started looking at the modern industry. And that's when things became even more interesting. Commercial divers work in places most people will never see. Under massive ships, beneath bridges, around underwater pipelines, inside dams, near offshore oil platforms. Some projects are so large that entire teams of divers work together to complete them. As Malik watched videos of these operations, he began asking himself the same question over and over again. How does someone actually get into this profession? The answer wasn't simple. Every new website revealed another requirement. Training programs, medical examinations, safety certifications, equipment knowledge, physical preparation. The list seemed endless. So Malik grabbed a notebook and started writing everything down. Every requirement, every cost, every step, every obstacle. He wanted to know exactly how much money he would need before taking the first step. As the numbers started adding up, reality began to set in. This wasn't a career someone entered overnight. It required planning, commitment, and financial preparation. Some schools charged thousands of dollars for training. Additional certifications could cost even more. Travel expenses had to be considered. Living expenses had to be considered. Emergency savings had to be considered. The dream was becoming real. And real dreams come with real costs. For a moment, Malik leaned back in his chair and stared at the screen. The opportunity was exciting, but the path ahead was bigger than he originally imagined. Still, something kept pulling him forward. The more he researched, the more convinced he became that this profession offered something different. Not just money, not just adventure, but a chance to build a specialized skill set that very few people possess. Then he discovered another fascinating fact. Many people spend their entire lives crossing bridges, traveling through ports, and using infrastructure that commercial divers help maintain. Yet they never think about the professionals working beneath the surface, hidden from view, far below the water.